Joining us with reaction is Virginia Congressman and member of the House Judiciary Budget and Appropriations Committee, Ben Cline. Congressman, welcome back to the show. Always good to have you. All right, you just heard Speaker McCarthy speak after his meeting. He said that Republicans are aligned on what to cut. Do you agree?
Well, Sean and Lindsay, we agree that the president has not come to the table yet. So we have to begin this conversation before we can get to specifics. But we do agree that we have to secure the full faith and credit of the United States. We have to increase the debt limit, but we can't continue to spend at the levels that this administration has been spending, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have been spending. So we've got to have some agreement as to going forward, how we're going to rein in wasteful spending, how we're going to move toward a balanced budget. And that's something that not a lot of people are talking about these days, but the American people want it, and we're going to work to deliver it.
So, Congressman, here's where I'll disagree with you. I think we saw a report the other day, $5.4 billion in pandemic funding being sent to people that don't exist. Rand Paul was on the air yesterday talking about studies, and again, I get it. Some of the money isn't huge, 100,000 here, $1 million there. But the point is, I don't see the downside in putting out a list of 50 things and saying to the Democrats, can you tell every American worker to go to work, have this much taken out of their taxes to fund this kind of stuff and make them be on defense? Because right now, I just don't get it. I think that they're winning a war, a messaging war, that is ours to lose. I mean, right now, we have $31.4 trillion in debt racked up. We're continuing to deficit spend, and they're trying to put Republicans on defense when every single American out there would say, are you kidding me? This government is overspending. There's tons of waste in it, and we just need to start jamming it in the Democrats' face and saying, is this what you're telling every man and woman that they're going to work to support?
Absolutely. We need to lean in on the fact that Democrats are wrecking this economy with their radical spending. They're driving the inflation rates higher. They're making it more expensive for families at home to buy groceries, to fill up at the gas tank. And it's crowding out. The interest on the debt is crowding out critical spending. In addition, we have a lot of wasteful spending that has to be curbed. That's why, as chairman of the RSC's Budget Task Force, the Republican Study Committee is the largest committee in the conference. We work to put out a balanced budget. We're going to be working on that, even though the president is not putting forward his budget until later in the spring.
But can I follow up on that? It's not just later in the spring. The law says the first week in February the president does. They sent out this memo, and it was sort of a little, what do you would call it, like sleight of hand, because they said we're going to be putting it out in March. That's against, I mean, that's a month later than the law permits. Why aren't Republicans making a bigger deal out of this? You just hit on something huge.
It is huge. You know, Republicans are restoring the rule of law, something that has been absent from this administration, something that has been absent from Congress for the 2 years that Democrats controlled all of Washington. We're restoring the rule of law, and that includes the president's requirement to submit a budget by February, and he's not doing that, so we're calling him out on it. That's why we got so many signatories on that letter. That's why the Republican Study Committee is going to be leading the charge to hold the president accountable.
Congressman, I only have about a minute left, so sorry to jam you on this, but you are on the Judiciary Committee. Today, you had your first hearing on border security. What came of that?
Oh, thank goodness Jim Jordan is back in charge of the Judiciary Committee. Our first hearing was on the border crisis, and we heard from people. We heard from a sheriff who recognized that the rule of law is not in place, that there is an open border at our southern border. We heard from a father whose son was killed by fentanyl trafficked across the border. It is a tragic situation, a humanitarian crisis, but all of our communities are border communities now because they are moving these migrants from the border into all of our communities. And what we need to do is to restore Title 42, restore remain in Mexico, and make sure that if they cross the border illegally, they're going to be detained until their asylum claim is heard.
Exactly. Well, I'm glad you guys are holding those hearings, and I appreciate the efforts that you are leading on the RSC, because that's huge. The American people need to know that it can be done. There is a better way, and I know you and your colleagues there at the RSC are showing us a better way, so thank you for that.
Thanks, Sean.